Before we get into tonight's stories, I want you to think about something for a second. Most horror stories don't start with screaming. They start with something small, a weird feeling, a moment that doesn't sit right, something you almost ignore. And honestly, sometimes the scariest thing isn't out there in the dark. It's the stuff we keep putting off in our own lives, like your health. You know that feeling? Something's off, but you tell yourself, I'll deal with it tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow turns into next week, and next week turns into never. That's exactly why I like using ZocDoc. It's a free platform where you can find doctors, check real reviews, and actually book an appointment fast, sometimes within a day or two. No awkward calls. No guessing if the doctor's good. You just pick someone who actually feels right for you. So if you've been putting something off, don't. Take care of it. Because trust me, ignoring things rarely makes them go away. And with that said, let's get into the first story. The bus stop. This happened on Thanksgiving night. And I remember that very clearly. Because I was sick. Not just a little sick either. I'm talking chills, nonstop coughing, barely able to speak. But I had already promised a friend I'd check on her cat while she was out of town. So even though I felt terrible, I still went. I didn't have a car, so I had to rely on public transport. And for some reason, I also decided this was the perfect time to grab some of my old stuff from my dad's place, including a bowling ball and tennis rackets. Yeah, not my smartest decision. By the time I finished everything and got back to the bus stop, it was around 9 p.m. Cold, quiet, empty, just me. Standing there, coughing every few seconds, holding way too much stuff, watching my phone say, bus arriving in 1 minute, except it never came. 1 minute turned into 15. 15 turned into 30. And the whole time I was completely alone, until a car pulled up. It slowed down near the stop, and a group of guys inside were laughing, talking loudly in another language. I didn't think much of it at first, just figured they were dropping someone off. And then one of them stepped out. The car drove away. Now it was just me and him. There was a whole empty bench. But instead of sitting anywhere else, he sat right next to me. I kept my eyes on my phone, pretending not to notice, trying to convince myself this was normal. Then, after a minute or two, I felt something, a hand, on my shoulder. Before I could even react, his arm wrapped around me, tight. My brain just froze. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just sat there trying to process what was happening. He mumbled something, asking if I was okay. And somehow, I just quietly said, yeah, I'm fine. Just waiting for the bus. Like that made any sense. After a few seconds, he let go and sat back down. And this is the part that still bothers me. I tried to explain it away. Maybe he thought I was sick. Maybe he was just trying to help. Deep down, I knew that wasn't true. But when you're alone like that, your brain does anything it can to stay calm. A few minutes later, he did it again. This time his grip was tighter. His hand moved slowly across my back. And I remember thinking one thing, I can't fight him. He was huge, way bigger than me, and there was no one around. Then finally, headlights. My bus. The second it pulled up, I slipped out of his arm and said, that's my bus. And that's when he said something back. Something that made my stomach drop. Because I understood enough to know. He was coming with me. He followed me onto the bus. I froze at first, standing in the aisle, pretending I didn't notice. My mind raced. Options as 0. I decided to do the only thing I could. Make sure he didn't sit next to me. I stood tall, forcing myself to move to a spot where he couldn't corner me. Finally, I managed to send a quick message to a friend, hoping someone could help. The bus crawled along, and my stomach knotted with every stop. Then the thought hit me, my friend's place was no good. I couldn't risk going there, not with him tailing me. So I made a decision. The next stop, my work. Closed stores, security cameras everywhere. Someone would see me. It was risky, but safer than being alone with him. When the bus reached my stop, he grabbed my shoulder again. My heart slammed. I took tiny steps, careful not to provoke him, edging toward the safety of my workplace. And then, luck. The back door was open. 2 coworkers were standing there, chatting. I slipped past him, muttering something about a man following me, and one of them immediately shut the door. He started banging on it, trying to get in. My hands were shaking, my chest heaving. Security arrived minutes later. I explained everything I could. The man had vanished by then, leaving me trembling, confused, and terrified. Even now, I don't know who he was or what he wanted. But that night taught me something simple. The smallest moments, waiting at a bus stop, thinking everything is fine, can turn into a nightmare in seconds. A few weeks later, I drove into the mountains to visit an old friend. Let's call him Scott. We'd grown up together, but life had pulled us apart. Years had passed since we last saw each other. When he invited me to visit, I was nostalgic, excited even, not knowing what I was about to walk into. By the time I arrived, night had fallen. The road was slick with ice, the woods around me dark and silent. His house was old, wooden, isolated. A rustic cabin tucked into the mountain slope. At first, everything seemed normal, almost cozy, but something about Scott felt off. Slower speech, awkward pauses, nervous glances toward a long, dark hallway. I stayed on the couch, the hallway light on, trying to ignore that nagging sense of unease. Then, at 2 a.m., it started. Thumping. Footsteps running across the floor above me. Then silence. The next night, soft scraping sounds came from the hallway downstairs. A tap on the wall, like someone flicking it. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to the house settling. But the third night, it became impossible to ignore. I woke up paralyzed, eyes moving, body frozen. And at the far end of the hallway, a figure stood. Scott's outline, perfectly still, arms at his sides, watching me. Couldn't scream, couldn't move, just stare. Then he turned, walking slowly into a guest room. My body finally obeyed. I crept to the room and saw another figure, standing, silent, facing the window. Not Scott. I ran, out the door, into the freezing night. When I looked back, in the window at the end of that hallway, a silhouette, still standing there. After that weekend, Scott stopped responding to messages. Whatever had taken over him, or whoever that was in his house, I never found out, but I never forgot. And sometimes, in the quiet of my own home, I still imagine that hallway and what might be waiting at the end of it.